to Bravado Wireless, and this is The End Zone. This is a special edition of The End Zone. We're giving you our high school preview show right here, right now. My name is Deion. To my left right here is Mr. Branch, giving you The End Zone. How's it going, Curtis?
It's going great. It's been a good summer. We've had a little time to do some fishing, play a little golf, work on our basketball games.
Shoot a little hoops.
Yeah.
It's been a fun summer. It's been a hot summer. But with that being said, when hot summers come around, that means football is very close.
Absolutely. We practices started this week. New teams with new aspirations of state championships. We'll cover a lot of those today in our show, but excited to be back for another season with Bravado Wireless and excited about our list of games for the coming season. We've got a great schedule for the coming year, and we'll share that here in a few minutes.
Yeah, you're certainly right about that. Our guys over here at Bravado Wireless did a great job of putting a great schedule for you guys, so make sure you tune in every Friday and check out some of these high school football action while me and Curtis bring you some of these good football here in the state of Oklahoma.
Absolutely. We're going to cover previews of each of the classes today. We're going to cover 6A1, 6A2, 5A, and 4A, and we'll get started with that in a few minutes here.
Well, with that being said, we're going to go ahead and take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back to give you our high school preview show for the 2021 season here on Bravado Wireless. From nationwide coverage to live high school sports to the great outdoors and so much more, we've got something for you. We're a local wireless carrier right here in Oklahoma. We work for your town, in your town. But great cell phone signal in rural areas is just scratching the surface. We also broadcast live events from all over eastern Oklahoma. High school football, basketball, baseball, dirt track races, livestock shows, and community events. Everything to keep you connected in your community. We're also producing original shows like Connect Outdoors and Cooking Wild that shines a light on real Oklahoman experiences. You can find us at bravadowireless.com, or you can search for us on Facebook or YouTube. You can even find us on the Oklahoma Sports Network. You can download their app straight to your phone, Apple TV, Smart TV, or Roku. We don't just create for Oklahoma, we are Oklahoma. We're Bravado Wireless, Oklahoma's service provider. Welcome back to the special edition of The End Zone here on bravadowireless.com. My name is Deion Amade. To my left right here is Curtis Branch. And this is my right, ain't it?
It's either way. We're good.
Yeah, I mean,
on that, it's to your left.
It's to my left, but
it's to your right.
I play football. I didn't left and right. They just said
right to the field.
Exactly, boundary field side. But with that being said, welcome back to the preview show. High school preview. We're going into football season right here on bravadowireless.com. And we mentioned before we went to the break that we're going to go ahead and show you our upcoming schedule for the football season. And we're going to do that right here, right now. Right, Mr. Branch?
Absolutely. We're excited about the schedule we got this season. A lot of diversity, a lot of great games, and you're going to lead us off?
Yeah, I certainly am. And then we'll lead off with week 0. That's how we like to do it in the state of Oklahoma. Everybody gets a little week 0 action. August 27th, we'll be going to Poto as they take on Bishop Kelly.
Bishop Kelly made a deep run of the playoffs, was a top 5 team last year in Class 5A. You've got Poto, who's a formidable team every single year.
Every year.
Class 4A. It'll be a great game to start off the season.
Yeah, Poto started off a little slow last year, coming off that state championship in 2019, 2020. Everybody was going through adversity. They come off with a couple of, early losses, but they were able to get things under control, got a leading rusher out there and a big-time tight end. So it's going to be very impressive to see what they can put onto the field this year in 2021.
Absolutely, and Bishop Kelly will want to come back. They probably felt like they left a little something behind. Should have gone maybe a step or two further in the playoffs last year. Got upset in the second round, and I think they will want to start off the season really strong there. So it'll be a great matchup of different classes, teams that don't have a lot of familiarity with each other, fan bases. Bishop Kelly always travels well. And
very well.
And they'll have to travel to Poto because that place will be rocking. So we're excited about that. And then you got week 1, we're going to McAllister, who is one of the top teams in Class 5A, and they're hosting a really formidable team in Sallisaw. Likes to spread the ball around, likes to get out and go. So it'd be a really good matchup there week 1 in September 3rd.
Yeah, Sallisaw has been told to have a lot of talent this year and is expected to do a lot of great things. So it's going to be interesting to see how they look early on in the season with week 1 as they go ahead and play McAllister. But let's go ahead and move on to week 2 as we see September 10th. Henrietta is going to be the home team and they're going to be facing Warner.
Should be a good matchup at Class A schools. Teams with a lot of familiarity with each other. We're excited to go to Henrietta and former home of Troy Aikman.
Yeah, I knew that. I was waiting for you to tell me that because I was watching the Hall of Fame and Jimmy Johnson got inducted. Go Cowboys, you know, go Cowboys.
Yeah, we're both Cowboys fans.
That's right. So let's go ahead and put down our Cowboy fandom and move on to week 3, though. So
week 3 is probably one of the most exciting weeks of the year for us because you got the McIntosh County War. Last year we were at Shakota to watch that game, and this year we're going to Eufaula to watch that same game. A lot of rivalry, a lot of familiarity with each other. You got some great players on both sides of the football there.
You certainly do. I'm always interested in seeing that rivalry, especially when the Ironheads come to play football, especially in that war. It gets physical, and there's a lot of running the football, and I like running the football.
Absolutely. So it'll be a great game. Week 4, where are we going?
We're going to – what the heck?
Hartshorn, Oklahoma, baby.
Hartshorn. We're going to Hartshorn, Oklahoma. The Eufaula Ironheads will be facing those guys over there at Hartshorn. Should be an interesting matchup.
Oh, it'll be a great matchup. We're excited about that. And then you really get into district play at that point. So Eufaula want to start off on the road, big district win. We'll see what Hartshorn has to say about that. Week 5, we're going to be at Hilldale, where we were at a couple times in the last couple of years. We're excited to be back and watch those guys. There's a lot of optimism in south of Muskogee here for them, and they'll be hosting a big game against Broken Bow on week 5, October 1st.
Yeah, they certainly will. Broken Bow coming into Hilldale with a big-time matchup, especially for their gunslinging quarterback. He has a nice arm on him. It's going to be interesting to see how that Hilldale secondary does against Broken Bow.
Yeah, and of course Hilldale's got some great receivers, good quarterback as well. So a lot of optimism with their offense and how they finished last year.
Now, week 6 is the time in the season where you kind of separate the cream from the crop. You know, guys kind of injuries come into play, adversity comes into play, but the good teams, they kind of rise to the occasion, and the ones that, you know, were just there for the pageantry of football season, they kind of fall by the wayside. Week 6 is what separates the boys from the men, and that's going to be where we go ahead. Shakota versus Seminole in that matchup is going to be an interesting one.
Oh, it'll be great. The Shakota running back is just phenomenal. We saw him twice last year. He's getting more offers than you got to go to the prom, Deion. So
it certainly is.
Really excited about that. And I know what was his most recent offer?
I think Memphis is the last offer Fisher just received. So that's going to be interesting. Memphis, all the way from Memphis, they recognize the talent over here.
Oh yeah, we were there the week that he got offered by Iowa State last year when they played Stigler. Great game. He put on a show. He is a game changer, and we're excited to get to cover him again this year. And then week 7, maybe the best matchup on the entire list of games is Coweta hosting McAllister in a game that will decide probably district title and have a lot of playoff implications because both these teams, according to what we've heard in the offseason, are loaded. Both have aspirations of knocking Carl Albert off the throne in Class 5A, and that will go to a lot of playoff positioning because winner of that game most likely will be the number 1 seed on the east side of the state.
Yeah, I mean, Coweta is a strong competitor this year, but little birds have been talking to me, and they say McAllister, they ain't scared of nobody this year, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens there week 7.
Gotcha. We'll be there for you, and then we'll week 8 we're going to Antlers, and we're going to host where they host Hugo, and that'll be a great matchup as well. And again, all these games late season have playoff implications, and so we're excited to bring those broadcasts to you.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. You know, week 8 in the season, that's where you kind of figure out what you need to do to make that playoff push, what you need to improve on. It's going to be interesting to see how both those teams fare against one another. But moving on to week 9, October 29th, we got Valiant versus Eufaula. That's the 3rd time we're seeing Eufaula in this schedule. We love watching Ironhead football, and it's going to be an interesting one against Valiant as well.
Yeah, that'll be a great matchup, and one probably to determine playoff positioning as well. And then Week 10, we're going to round off the season November 5th. Fort Gibson hosting Hilldale in one of the great clashes in this part of the state. And it was a great game last year. And we had a fight break out. Police, there was some arrests made during the ball game. It was everything you wanted as a broadcaster.
Hey, that makes for some interesting football and some very competitive football at that. Hilldale, always a good bunch of athletes on that side, but Fort Gibson, always physical with the ball in their hands and on the other side of the ball defensively. So it's going to be very interesting to see how that rivalry goes.
Absolutely, and they have a lot of familiarity with each other, and so it's always a great matchup. Those kids know each other really well. We watched that during the basketball tournaments we covered at Fort Gibson this year. Those kids know each other. They grow up together. They steal each other's girlfriends. They steal each other's ice cream, and so it'll be a matchup worth watching.
It certainly will. And well, that rounds up our regular season schedule. We'll have more games after Week 10. Playoff time comes into play. We don't know who's going to be in the playoff yet, so we don't have that written in stone. But don't worry, here at Bravado Wireless, we'll bring you that football action. But coming back after the break, we'll break down some of the games, some plays, and the standings here at 6A when we come right back on BravadoWireless.com.
You have a voice, a right to stand up against overpaying for data you don't use from companies that don't live where you live. We are Bravado Wireless, and we are here to answer your call for a better plan right here in southeastern Oklahoma. Now get 2 lines with unlimited talk and text and 14 gigabytes of shared data for only $64.99 a month, because costs should never stop you from connecting with those who mean most to you. We are Bravado Wireless. We believe in the power of connection.
Welcome back to the special edition of The End Zone here on BravadoWireless.com. My name is Deion Amade. To my right over here is my man Curtis Branch. I'm just going to switch off left and right, left and right.
That.
All right, so we're back, and we're going to go ahead and break down these matchups and these teams here on 6A1. We'll also give you the rankings and our opinion of whether these teams are going to end up at the end of the season. So we're going to go ahead and start this thing off. We know how I like to do. Get right into it, okay? 6A1, Broken Arrow. Go.
Let's talk about Broken Arrow. Josh Blankenship, first-year head coach, coming back to his home area.
That's right.
Tulsa Union grad, played at TU, and is the son of a guy that coaches over at Owasso. It's really interesting. I know he's got a lot of optimism. Tulsa World did an article about him yesterday and about his first day of practice. Really likes the kids, likes their buy-in. You know what? He could have a great first season and be the 4th best team on the east side of the state.
And you're going to find out a lot more about that as we go throughout 6A1, why they could possibly be maybe the 4th best team on that side of the state. Yeah. But, I mean, he has a number of kids over there wearing that Broken Arrow uniform, a lot of talent. They gave him a goodie bag when he came in to take over this program. Mario Horn, the running back, he's a junior. He's fast, he's shifty, and he is a electrifying player. We'll talk about this a little bit more. Arguably one of the most electrifying players in the state of Oklahoma, Mario Horn.
Absolutely. And then they've got a receiver, Robert Spears Jennings, a senior, 6'1", 173-pounder that is committed to OU. Big-time player that's going to be on there for them. Their offense is young, but they're going to have a lot of talent. They got a lot of the playmakers out there, and so they played a lot young. Offensive line is green. That's going to be really the key as to how they stack up against the competition, which includes
very, very important. I think you got to say that again. The offensive line is going to be very important for Broken Arrow because they're going against a lot of big boys over there on that side of the state.
Yeah, absolutely. When you think 6A1 football, you think Union, Owasso, Jinx, along with Broken Arrow. Well, they got all 3 in the first 5 games, so it'll be an interesting start to his regime there in Broken Arrow.
Yeah, good luck, Coach Blankenship. You're going to need it. Moving on, Edmond Memorial is the team we're looking at. The Bulldogs coming off an 0-10 season. We talked about a lot of teams facing adversity in 2020. Edmond Memorial, one of those teams for sure.
Yeah, Logan Thomas is first-year coach there. They returned 7 starters on offense. Got a good playmaker in the quarterback, Markel Johnson. really key games to really decide on where their season's going to go. At Edmond Santa Fe on September 24th, they go play Broken Arrow and Jinx in October, and so those two games will decide how their season goes.
Yeah, Edmond Santa Fe is going to be a very big matchup for them. We'll talk about a little bit more about them as we go along, but it's going to be an interesting game to see if they can get over that hump and get a win in the win column this year.
Absolutely.
But moving on, Edmond North is the team we're looking at. The Huskies coming off a 1-7 season last year. Not what you want to look at when you're looking at your wins and losses, but they did improve going on into the season. Very young team. Looking at Tanner Roof, the fifth-year head coach. What do you think about the Edmond North Huskies?
Well, they've got 7 starters coming back from a team that won 1-7. Obviously, didn't play a full schedule due to COVID, which we'll see a lot of in these previews. They've got some winnable games early on, and wins create confidence. Confidence creates opportunities there for you to kind of improve in the win column. And so I think a good start against Deer Creek week 0 will be important for them and how they establish their footing in this season.
Yeah, certainly will be. Moving on, Edmond Santa Fe. This is the team that I mentioned earlier. This is the team in Edmond that you don't want to mess with, all right? The T-Wolves are a bunch that is big, athletic, strong, and fast, and it all starts with their wide receiver, Talon Cetron. He sets the world ablaze over there for the Edmond Santa Fe Wolves.
He's a great player. They come back from a state runner-up season last year, went 10-3. Coach White in his 6th season. They averaged over 40 points per game last season. That's pretty good.
Oh, you think? It's really good.
Yeah, so they're really exciting. They're going to start week 0 against Owasso. It'll be a great matchup, first game of the season, and then they get into district play. There are 2 critical games in district play against Jinx and Broken Arrow, and those are back-to-back weeks against playoff caliber competition. That'll be really critical to see how they got a ton of talent. I mean, let's not act like they're going to just roll over on those situations.
Here's the question that I pose to you, though. With their schedule being the way it is, you face Owasso early on in the season. You also face Jinx and Broken Arrow late. Would you want to face a team like Owasso first game of the season? Are you one of those guys that wants you to dessert first or last, especially with how loaded Owasso is this year?
Well, I don't know where you get your dessert, but Owasso is not dessert if you're me. So I think as a coach, you want to see where you're at early on. Football is a shorter season than basketball, and so you want to come out of the gate strong. You want to kind of see where are we at, and then you got weeks to improve, right? I mean, it's a marathon, not a sprint. But I want to start out and I want to see where we're at. Owasso is going to be a contender for the Gold Ball in 6A1. Santa Fe is going to be a contender for the Gold Ball in 6A1. So how that game turns out doesn't lead to demise in their season because both these guys have high aspirations. But I think it really sets the stage for how do we improve, where are we at, what do we need to get better at. And I think that's something you can coach around. So I like the early matchup against Owasso.
Yeah, I mean, I like
now, the loser is not going to like it.
Yeah, that's very true.
The winner will.
And as football fans and high school football fans in the state of Oklahoma, I'm going to like it a lot. But I don't have to coach either one of these teams. So, yeah. Moving on, though, Enid is a team that's had some rough seasons, lately. But they came out with a 3-7 record last year and looking to improve on that. What do you think about this team?
Well, they got 6 returning starters on defense. Rashawn Woods, a guy you may know a little bit about from your Oklahoma State background.
Just a little bit.
But a big game for them. September 3rd is their rival, Ponca City. That'll be a great game for them. And then really how they handle games at Jinx, at Edmond Santa Fe, and at Broken Arrow are really be interesting for them to see if they have a chance to make the playoffs and make a push into it this year.
Yeah, certainly will be. Moving on through 6A1 is the team that won the state championship in 6A1 last year, the Jinx Trojans, coming off an 11-1 season, only lost to Bixby and they seem to be looking like they're ready for another state championship run. What do you think about the Jinx Trojans?
Well, a lot of tradition there. Absolutely. Their only loss last year was to Bixby. They're going to start the season off against them again this year, or maybe not start the season off, but that'll be a big game at home.
Yeah.
Week 1 of the season, and they've got back to back. They've got them and going to Tulsa Union. And so those will be big games. But they've got a lot of talent, a lot of guys coming back, 13 starters on offense and defense. And got to move in from Booker T, a kid named Jaden Carroll, running back, 2-year starter of Booker T, is going to give them another playmaker in the backfield to go along with their receivers, Glenn Jones and Cade Stacy, and the Jones kid's supposed to be fast. I think he can outrun you.
I heard he's fast. I don't know if he's that fast, but I mean, another thing that's going to be interesting over there at Jinx, they got a little bit of a quarterback controversy. Freshman comes in and already has one offer from some camps that he went to this year, so he's supposed to be a very, very impressive young freshman. It's going to be interesting to see if the Jinx Trojans get him a couple snaps early in the season, or if he even makes the varsity roster. But he does have a little bit of a quarterback competition over for Jinx, and it's going to be interesting to see how that unfolds.
Well, absolutely. And Stephen Kittleman led him to a state title last year. He was a 4-year starter, 3 or 4-year starter for him. Really good player, and so that's a position that you like to have some experience in. The one thing that will help them is the depth in their offensive line. They've always got great offensive lines. This is one of their best ones coming back. And then the defense, they got a great defensive line as well.
Yeah. Moving on from the state championship Jinx Trojans, we got the Moore Lions coming off a 3-8 record, head coached by Brad Hill over there in Moore. What do you think about the Lions and their aspirations this season?
Well, they got an uphill battle. They did make the playoffs last year, and they've got some big games. Against Norman, it will be a big critical early season non-district game for them. How they handle that will be a big thing. But Denver Wolf's their quarterback and had 1,000 yards passing and 6 touchdowns last season as a sophomore, and he's got a good receiver in Marcus Dawkins Jr., who's a Vibe Top 100 player.
Yeah, he's pretty impressive. I've seen a lot of him the last couple of years. They're going to need to get the ball to him a lot if they're going to want to improve on what they did last year. But moving on, we're going to go ahead to Mustang. The Mustang Broncos, a team that came off a 5-7 record last year, also coached by another Blankenship, Lee Blankenship this time. He's got a couple of starters coming back on offense and defense. What do you think about the Mustangs' chances this year?
Well, Jacoby Johnson is a defensive back and a running back. He's a multiple player. He's got a lot of D1 offers, 6'3", 190-pound junior. He's a multi-sport athlete. He's a guy that really makes them go. He's a guy that I think will dictate how far they go in the playoffs. Got some huge games early in the season. They're going they host UConn September 3rd, and then they're at Stillwater on September 10th. So I think those are 2 critical ball games. We're not going to know how good they are really until they get up and play Union.
Yeah, they got a really tough schedule if you want to really look at it. I mean, that UConn and Stillwater game, both those teams are tough. And then also on the back end of that, you go and face Tulsa Union and Owasso. So very tough schedule for these guys. It's going to be interesting to see how they play everything out.
Gotcha.
Moving on, though, the Norman Tigers, coming off a 2-7 record last year. Coach Rocky Martin disappointed in that, record, but it's going to be interesting to see what they come up with this year.
Yeah, they got 6 starters back on offense and on defense. Key games for them, they're going to play Norman North on a Thursday night game, September 2nd. Mustang game will be a big one that we just talked about, Mustang, and then get into district play against Jinx and Broken Arrow. You have Jinx, Broken Arrow, and Santa Fe really at the back end of this schedule. All 3 of those guys are state title contenders. You have to win maybe one of those to get in the playoffs, and hopefully you win one or 2. But there's some optimism with Norman. I think they've got some really good playmakers. They give them a lot of hope.
Yeah, that's a tough ask right there at the end of the season, because you got to understand the situation you're looking at. This is a team. These are teams that are trying to prepare themselves to be at their peak when playoff time comes, and that's being well rested and playing your best late in the season, and now you got to face those guys looking ahead to the playoffs. It's going to be interesting to see how they fold in that one.
They've got a big-time offensive line prospect, 6'4", 295-pound senior. I'm going to try this. Viliami Makahunahuni. I think that's about as close as anybody from Oklahoma could be expected to get that name.
I'm not going to try. so you got it.
Got some really good linebackers as well. I think the strength of their defense is in that second level, and those guys are going to have to play well for them for them to make a playoff run, no doubt.
Yeah, certainly. Now let's go to the other side of Norman. Norman North is the team we're looking at now. The Wolves coming off a 6-4 record, loss in the quarterfinals last year. Let's see if they can, push further into the playoffs. What do you think they have to do to get there?
Well, they got a great quarterback, a 6'4" senior Gavin Frakes, and he's the guy that's going to lead them offensively. Running back Chapman McCown is junior that rushed for 1,000 yards last season. I think he's the guy that's got a chance to help them out. Duncan Parham sounds like the name of a former OU player named Duncan Parham, so there might be some relation there. That his linebacker for him had 119 tackles last year.
Impressive.
That's quite a few.
Whew. Certainly is. But let's move on to one of those big four teams that we mentioned earlier, the Owasso Rams. This is a team that made it to the semifinals last year, 12-1 record. Bill Blankenship's, ever since he's come to that program, he's put them on the map, and they've been doing nothing but winning state championships and getting deep into the playoffs. What do you think about the Owasso Rams this year?
Well, they were 12-0 going into the semifinals last year. Number one ranked team. They had beaten Jinx and beaten them pretty handily early in the season. And so, I think it was an upset for them. I think a little bit of a disappointment to not get to the state championship game, not to win a gold ball last year with everything they've got. They have some they don't have as many starters back as maybe they would like, but the kids that they do have coming back are all really high-quality kids. Austin Havens, 6'4" quarterback. He's a junior, threw for 2,000 yards last season. He's got the Adams kid that is a great receiver on the outside for him. And then they got some good guys on the defensive side.
They certainly do. On the other side, Jacob Clifton is a guy who's been tearing it up this summer at camps and getting a lot of offers. Recently committed to Kansas State. D1 talent across the board, not just at linebacker, but also on the defensive line. A transfer coming in, Chris McKellen, 6'4", 290 pounds, got offers from everybody. If I list them off, we'll be here all day. But just know he's a talent. He's going to be plugging those holes defensively for the Rams.
Yeah, if you look at the top 25 of the preseason coaches poll in the NCAAs, every one of those schools has offered him. It's pretty impressive. Great-looking athlete, dynamic athlete. Both him and Clifton. Clifton's a really good athlete. Got a lot of range. He's got a lot. He's going to grow into that body. He's going to be a big-time player. But they always have talent. They're going to have talent in the secondary. I think they're really dynamic. I think they got to be one of the front runners for the gold ball this year.
I'm not going to argue with you on that one. Moving on, we're going to go down to Putnam City. Putnam City, the Pirates, coming off a 4-6 record last year. Number of starters coming back, 3 on the offensive side and 7 on the defensive side, running that 4-2-5 defense that we all love to see here in the state of Oklahoma. What do you think about the Pirates this year?
Well, they have 7 returning starters on defense, which will give them a chance. 3 on the offensive side. They're going to struggle this year to win as many games as they won last year. 4 wins in the district that they play. Mm-hmm. They're very inexperienced on the offensive side of the ball, but their defense is pretty good. They're going to have to really be stalwarts on that side of football to give the offense a chance to win because, again, you're in a district with Mustang, Owasso, and Union, and so really tough challenging. But their quarterback gives them a chance, Marcellus Hawkins.
Certainly does. Moving on down the list, we got Southmore coming up here. The SaberCats coming off a 3-8 record, coached by Coach Norman. What do you think about the SaberCats and their chances as far as their district and in that Moore War?
Well, they got a lot tougher schedule than they had in 2020. And so start off against my former school, Booker T. Washington, and that team will be very, very talented as they go in there on August 26th. Games at Owasso, at Union, not going to fare well for them, but they might be the youngest team in 6A, which may not speak well for this season, but will give them a chance in coming years.
They looking forward and looking at the positive. Now let's go ahead and move on to Union, which is a 6-5 team, was a semifinalist last year. What do you think about Union?
Well, I mean, they're a blue blood in Class 6A, and we talked about this last season. I mean, people were kind of down on Union, and I kind of just said in our rankings last season, like, they're Union. They're going to figure this out. And we talked about last season in this preview show how tough their start of their season was. And you know what? We were right.
We certainly were.
We're not right a lot, but I'm going to tell you, they started off 0-4, finished 6-1, and losing in the semifinals last year, and a tough loss. And so their first 5 games were combined 35-12 last year, the record of the teams that they played. So they have a much easier schedule, I think, to start off with by playing Broken Arrow and Jinx back to back.
Yeah, they certainly do. And last year, things got turned around for them late in the season. But the thing that really helped them is they moved who was their starting quarterback at the beginning of the season, Banks. They moved him to the running back position, and they moved up the sophomore, who's now a junior this year, Tempest, to that starting quarterback role, and he got this Union team rolling. And with that being said, I think that's why they're kind of ranked higher this year, and people are not so down about them because they got a starting quarterback that looks pretty good, and they got things figured out, and they started putting things together offensively, and they think that's going to transition to this year.
Well, they got one more playmaker in the backfield, and they got a great defense. They got a good offensive line led by Will Thomas and Bennett Ringleb, and those two guys anchor that offensive line, and I think that's a big key for them. You guys still have to win football games in the trenches.
You certainly do.
We play in an era of spread football, but you still have to be able to line up the football when the weather gets cold and the weather gets bad, and I think that's a thing that's big for them. So I think they're going to be a team that's going to be really good. I think people have a lot of expectations for them this year, and so do we.
Yep, and ending things off for this Moore school that we've been looking at, the Westmore Jaguars, one of the most athletic teams over there in Moore, coached by Lorenzo Williams. He returns some starters here on offense and defense. It's going to be an impressive bunch, in my opinion. Coming off a 6-5 season last year, a little disappointment for Coach Williams, but a lot to prove here this year.
Yeah, they're going to probably have to use 2 quarterbacks this season. I think that's what most people expect from them. But they have some inexperience they're going to have to overcome in order to become a playoff contender this year.
Yeah, they certainly will. Moving on to the next team on our list, and that's going to be that UConn team, the Millers, that runs that wing T offense. How do you feel about the UConn Millers coming into the season?
Well, they had a great season last year. Really probably exceeded our expectations to some degree, 6-5. But they returned 5 starters on offense and 6 on defense. Again, key games for them are at Mustang September 3rd. That'll be one to watch out for, to see kind of really as a litmus test to see where they're at during the season. They got winnable games, a winnable game at Deer Creek, and then you go back to back to back. I mean, Edmond Santa Fe, at Broken Arrow, Jinx. So that's a brutal October. And it might be a red October for the Millers right there. But, they've got some talent. They got a great running back in Slaughter, and they got a great offensive lineman in Lane Parks. And those 2 guys, both top 100 players and guys that really need to carry them if they're going to get back to the playoffs.
Slaughter has been a running back that I've been impressed with since he was a sophomore. He's got a lot of speed out of that backfield, so it's going to be very interesting to see him carry the load his senior year for the Millers, and it's going to be interesting to see how they fare towards the end there. But that rounds out the 6A1 teams. Now we get the opportunity to rank these teams and how we think they're going to be doing. Don't worry, guys. These standings are not final, but it is our opinion, so we can go ahead and start with the number 10 team. Who do you think is going to be number 10 there, Curtis?
Well, we're going to go with the Norman Tigers at the number 10 spot, like what they did last season, like what they have coming back in they've got some momentum coming to them, and I think they're a team to be expected to make the top 10 this year.
Yeah, I agree with you right there. I mean, still coming off not an impressive season last year. I do think they make some strides and some improvements, but number 10 seems to be a good spot for them. Coming in at number 9, I think it's going to be the team across the city over there at Norman. It's going to be the Norman North Wolves. They, again, when they were up back in a couple years ago when they had a bunch of talent over there, they were competing for state championships, but it's kind of been a couple of down years for the Norman North Wolves. It's going to be interesting to see how they come back this year, but I got them at number 9 right now.
Gotcha. We'll stay on the west side at number 8 with Moore, the Lions, and we expect playoff round. They got to the second round last year. That'd be a good expectation for them this year, and I think they have the talent to do that.
Yeah, I agree with you right there. Let's go ahead and move on to number 7. The number 7 team, in my opinion, is the team that we just talked about, the Yukon Millers. Again, they run that unusual offense, so it's kind of hard to figure out week to week, especially when you're going against spread teams throughout the season, and then you got this one team that runs an unorthodox offense. But I still think they come in, they use that to their advantage, they get some wins, but still number 7 is, I think, the place that they need to be.
Right. Now, experienced offensive line will help them out as well, but you got a class that's front loaded with the east side teams, and so might be the best or one of the top 2 or 3 teams on the west side, and it's what it is.
Yeah, it certainly is. Going to number 6, Mustang is the one we have penciled in at 6. It's a team that has some talent, has some speed, but I don't know if it's enough to kind of push them towards that top 5 in this 6A1, other than just being in the middle of the pack there.
Right, and again, Jacoby Johnson's a guy that you ought to look out for as a fan of football. Watch his name. I mean, he kind of exploded onto the scene last year as a sophomore. He's a 2-sport athlete. He has multiple Division I offers in both sports. It's not clear which sport he's going to, football or basketball. He's a guy that could push them into the top 5 and make a deep playoff run because he's that dynamic of an athlete.
Moving on to number 5, going into some of the teams that are going to be competing for that gold ball towards the end of the season. Let's start it off with Edmond Santa Fe at number 5. I think they're a talented bunch. I think they're impressive. They get the job done, especially with Tylen Cetron setting things ablaze over there on the edge. But is it enough to overtake the schools that have led this football season throughout our times here at Oklahoma, with it being the top 4 teams over there in the state, over there on the east side of the state?
I don't think so. I mean, this east side of the state is going to be really loaded this year. Some people may call that a bias, but when you look at the teams that we've got in our top 4, I think it's pretty clear that the talent in 6A1 continues to reside on the east side of the state.
Speaking of those top 4 teams, let's go ahead and start to mention them right now. Number 4, Broken Arrow.
Yeah, we talked about this leading off. Broken Arrow was the first team we covered. Josh Blankenship inherits the reins there at the largest school in the state. They got a wealth of talent, 120 kids out for football. They have won recently. They have won state titles in the last couple of years, and they've got some explosive, dynamic playmakers in the backfield, and yet they're probably the 4th best team on the east side of the state of Oklahoma.
Couldn't argue with you there. Going to number 3, Union. Union is loaded on the defensive side of the football. The defensive line kind of brings the pain over there for Union, especially this year. It's going to be interesting to see how they can push past some of these other schools that we're about to mention and kind of make that run for that gold ball. Because right now, if defense wins championships, you can't count out Union.
Absolutely, and they started off 0-4 last season, and which is something we kind of anticipated with the strength of that schedule that they faced early on. But it also did something that we talked about last season, and that was create. It kind of forged them. You're forged through fire, and I'm telling you, they went through a lot of fire, and they're a proud program, great coaching staff, great facilities. It's not surprising to see them where they're at, and really you could probably interchange them in the top 2 and because they made it to the semifinals, had a chance to win that game, and they'll be right there at the end of this season.
I hear you. Number 2, We only got two to guess from, so I think it's going to be the Bill Blankenship's Owasso Rams, all right? Owasso is a loaded bunch. They are star-studded. They got everybody from the offense to the defense. But can they make it through those crucial games, those games where when it's the moment is arrived? Can you push forward? Because that's what kind of caught them up last year in that semifinals versus Jinx.
Well, on Jinx, to be fair, Jinx got a lot of momentum and really, caught him at a good time. Jinx kind of recovered from the gauntlet that they went through. And the thing I like about all these teams is that they find a way to push each other and find out where they're at early on in the season. I mean, Jinx lost at Bixby. Lost by a significant number, and they go lose to Owasso, and yet they find a way to recover, to kind of re-gear, retool themselves, prove what they are as a team, come together, and really made a great state championship run last year. I think the key between these two teams and who decides the champion of 6A is going to be quarterback play. Really, Owasso's got a little bit more experience there. Jinx will have talent. Jinx will have playmakers all around. They're going to have a good offensive line, but it's how well does that quarterback play come on for Jinx to determine are they going to be repeated state champions.
Well, mentioning Jinx, they will be our number one team in 6A1. We already mentioned them quite a bit, but it's like you said, Mr. Branch, quarterback experience is a lot to ask for in this state, and Jinx right now, they don't have any.
Right, and they got a dynamic playmaker coming in from Booker T. Jaden Carroll. He's a kid that I saw play over there quite a bit. He's a kid that's shifty, dynamic playmaker. He's kind of a Quentin Griffin type, smaller, but he can bounce out. He got a lot of toughness, and he can ease those quarterback pains by getting him the ball and letting him create behind that offensive line.
Hey, the best friend to a quarterback and a defense is a great running game.
Absolutely.
Yeah. With that being said, that wraps up 6A1 for us here at Bravado Wireless. This is our End Zone Special Edition High School Preview Show. When we come back, we'll give you 6A2, baby, here on bravadowireless.com. Welcome back to the special edition of the End Zone here on bravadowireless.com. My name is Deion Amade. Right here to my right is Curtis Branch, and we're here to give you 6A2. Yeah, that's right, 2 over here at Oklahoma High School football. And starting off, we're going to go ahead and start it off with Bartlesville.
Bartlesville Bruins, coached by Jason Sport, 3-7 last year, and got 10 total returning starters, and they got a chance to be a playoff team this year, but they're going to need to do it behind that big offensive line.
Yeah, they certainly are. Leading that way is Brewston, 6'3", 285 pounds, senior. Already committed to the Air Force Academy, but he's going to have to lead these Bruins this year.
Gotcha. Also, another offensive lineman for him is Maddox Perrier, and Perrier, and 6'3", 280-pounder. That is the strength of this offense. They do have some speed on the outside with receiver Engage Keaton, and he had 38 catches last year for 481 yards. Look for him to make some plays. And then their defense led by Hunter McClintock.
Yeah, it certainly is. Moving on, the team, the crown jewel maybe of all of Oklahoma is the Bixby Spartans. They come back right now with the undefeated record, 11-0 last year, state champions. What do you think about the Bixby Spartans and that winning streak?
Well, I don't think it'd be interesting. They got some challenges early to that, going to or hosting Mansfield, and then that's the 5A state runner-up there in Texas last year, and then they go to Jinx, defending 6A1 state champion. But clearly in this class, they're the cream of the crop. They've got the most dynamic playmaker I've seen in high school football in a few years here in Oklahoma, and the OSU commit Braylon Presley to follow his brother over there.
Yeah.
If you guys haven't seen him play and you're a fan of football, you need to take a Friday night, drive wherever they're playing, get there early because the stands are going to be packed, and you need to watch this kid. And then you need to watch a kid named Luke Haas, the 6'3", 220-pound tight end. He's the number one tight end recruit in the entire nation. And he's just a junior.
Yes,
and
so
they've got a lot of talent, but it starts with Presley and Haas.
It certainly does. Moving on to down our list for 6A2 with your former school, Booker T. Washington. How do you think the Hornets are going to fare this year?
Well, excited for Coach Brown and some of the kids that I've got to coach over the years. One of my favorite kids, Latham Boone's quarterback, coming back. He had a really good season as a sophomore last year. Grew a lot as a player. He's going to be critical to the offense. It's offensive line that's a little lacking. I think they're a little concerned about that. That's going to be something they need to shore up. But, man, you talk about athletes. You got Ethan Washington, Gentry Williams, Micah Tees. Gentry Williams might be the fastest guy in the state. He is world-class sprinter. He's got more D1 offers than about anybody in the state of Oklahoma, and his list is a who's who. And how they were able to get him the ball. You got Micah Tees, who's another big-time player. And then you got a kid their secondary is legit.
And defense is going to help you when you have an offense that's not going to have the greatest offensive line. Another thing that's going to help you is getting the ball out quickly, and he has a lot of athletes over there to do that.
Absolutely. Now, Ramsey Austin is a good lineman for him, and he's going to be a guy that anchors that offensive line. But look for them to be really explosive on the outside.
Certainly. The team that everybody thinks is going to be challenging Bixby for that 6A2 state championship is Choctaw over there. The Yellow Jackets, last year state runner-ups. They face against Bixby during the regular season. Should be a very, very big heavyweight matchup. And it looks like, in my opinion, and a lot of other people's opinions, the experts, they're going to face each other in the state championship as well this year.
Yeah, absolutely. They'll face each other October 8th at Bixby. Or maybe they host that game, sorry. But Steele Wassel, the 6'4", 220-pound quarterback, threw for 3,300 yards last season.
Yes.
That's quite a bit. They lost some talent, but they have got a lot of talent. One of the most athletic teams on the in Class 6A2. And certainly they are loaded and got several Division I players and a team that's going to compete for the gold ball, no doubt.
Yeah, Latrell Ray is a running back. Although he's 5'9", 165 pounds, he runs like he's about 225. He's a physical runner, and it's going to be really, really enjoyable to watch him play this year.
Absolutely. That game, September 24th, mark your calendar, September 24th versus Booker T to open up probably district. That might be the last non-district game. And then October 8th against Bixby.
That's the one circle on the calendar.
Yeah, circle that one.
Well, moving on, we got Deer Creek now. They're led by their all-world offensive lineman, Jacob Saxon, who has committed to Oklahoma recently. But the Antlers coming off a 4-6 record last year. What do you think about Deer Creek?
Well, they returned 16 starters. You wouldn't know by our screen over here that's showing about 1/4 of the page that we've got. But they returned 16 starters on both sides of the ball, and I think that gives them a chance to be a really good squad.
Because that kind of record kind of tells you it's a young team, but they have talent. So when you're returning that many starters, I would expect that that record to be a lot better this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think there are teams that got a chance to make the playoffs and make a run in the playoffs this year because you got some change coming over there on the west side of the state. So
yes,
they have an opportunity.
Certainly is. And speaking of west side of the state, Dale City, a team and a school that's coming off of a state championship in basketball. Let's see if that trickles down to football. I mean, this team last year was expected to be pretty good. Had a disappointing season, 4-6 record. What do you think comes about of the Eagles this year?
Well, new head coach Robert Jones. Mike Dunn left Dell City to go to Carl Albert. We'll talk about them in our 5A preview. They got a lot of critical ball games coming on, but they got some great talent. David Stone, a 6'5", 260-pound sophomore. He's a kid that's a top 100 player. He's going to be a high D1 player by the time he graduates there. Jason Smith, a 6'2", 240-pound linebacker, is a big-time player for him. And then Thomas, the defensive back, he had quite a few tackles, 70 tackles as a sophomore. But they are a young and inexperienced ball club. They're going to have athletes. They're going to have the ability to do things, but they got to improve offensively in order to keep up with the rest of these high-octane offenses in 6A2.
Yeah, I truly agree. Moving on, Lawton, the Wolverines, coming off a 4-5 season last year. It's going to be interesting to see what they can do this year. What do you think about the Wolverines and their chances?
Well, they don't return a lot of starters. They got 4 on offense, 4 on defense. Key games for them is really going to be Midwest City, at Stillwater, and Deer Creek in late October. And so they've got some big playmakers. Devin Simpson, 5'8", 160-pound player. He averaged 20 yards per touch last season, and so look out for him.
That's getting up and going.
Yeah, that's about what I did.
Back in your day?
Back in the day. In the backyard against my brother.
Yeah, that's what I assumed. That's what I assumed.
Don't be a hater. Don't be a hater.
Moving on, Midwest City.
I'll hate myself. You pick me up.
I got you. Moving on, Midwest City, the Bombers. This is a very historic, tradition-filled school and team. Coming off an 8-3 record last year, coached by Coach Hall. What do you think about the Bombers and coming in this upcoming season?
Well, they got 11 starters coming back. If they weren't in 6A2, or maybe if Bixby and Choctaw weren't in 6A2, you'd say they'd have a chance at the gold ball. But when you've got those two elite teams, it is something that's going to hurt them. The quarterback, D'Angelo Irvin, he's a skilled playmaker.
Special player.
And he's a guy that is really going to give them a chance to compete. But they don't have a lot of depth. They've got a lot of kids playing both ways, and I think that's something that will hurt them as you get into the playoff runs.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, but this Irving at the quarterback position, I mentioned it last year, and I'm telling you again this year. If you've ever seen highlights of Island Iverson playing football, D'Angelo Irvin reminds you exactly of that. I'm telling you, kids, if you haven't seen it before, turn on the YouTube, go check out the video. D'Angelo Irvin, he's got it down.
You know, Barry Switzer offered Allen Iverson a scholarship.
Of course, Barry Switzer
Wishbone. and Switzer wasn't even the coach at OU when he did it.
Oh, man. Moving on, off of Barry Switzer, Putnam City North is the Panthers, coming off a quarterfinalist team last year. Still a team with nice young pieces and a talented quarterback at that.
Absolutely. So they returned 12 total starters. They a team that's got a lot of upside. I think people have thought they've got improved over the summer. They've got some momentum going, and so they're a team that's on the rise in 6A2. Is it enough to get to the semifinals? Is it enough to make a finals appearance? We'll see. But the quarterback play from Carson Laverty is going to be a big signal to that. They've got some running backs, and they got some talented offensive linemen as well that can give them a chance to be really good.
Certainly does. Coming up next on the list is the Muskogee Roughers. This is a team that everybody knows about, has heard about, but was disappointed in last year. Coming on a 0-7 season. Again, 2020, weird year, a lot of adversity, different weird things happening, but the Roughers being 0-7, one of the weirdest. What's your take on it?
Well, we had on our podcast to start our season off with Coach Travis Hill. He had just been named the head coach of the Muskogee Roughers. If you've been around him at all, you talk about energy, you talk about enthusiasm. He's a guy that's won at every place he's ever been. I don't expect any less right here. And Muskogee's always has talent. They got 14 returning starters, 6 on offense, 8 on defense. And they've got a tough schedule, but I'm going to tell you, they have a chance if those kids can mature and buy into what Coach Hill, and he's a hard guy to not buy into what he says. So I think that they're going to surprise a lot of folks. They're going to be better than 0-7 this year. I think that they got a chance to squeak into the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, new head coach, new stadium, new offensive scheme. There's a lot of new changes there in Muskogee. It's going to be interesting to see if it.
You
turns
like it
into
when you
success.
get new shoes, right? You like it when you get new clothes. It makes you feel better. It makes you feel good.
Confidence.
Hey, I'm telling you, folks,
it's to the
look out.
roof.
Look out.
Coming up next is Stillwater, the Pioneers, coming off a semifinalist team, a team that was 9-1 but loses a lot of talent through graduation. What do you think from the Pioneers in their upcoming season?
Well, they got a great head coach. They've got tradition. They have built themselves up to be one of the contenders, perennial contenders in Class 6A2. They got a kid named Gundy. Might be related to a guy that coaches over there, that quarterback.
It's gotta be.
He's 6'3" junior. I think he's got a lot of talent. They got some kids that he can get the ball to. Mason Butler primarily is wide receiver out on the outside. And then they've got a good defense. Gabe Brown, 6'2", 210-pound senior, is a Vipe Top 100 kid. And then a defensive back that I really like, the Eli Williams.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, this team is they don't have a lot of experience, especially with all the talent that they've lost the last couple of years with their making a couple of state championship runs. But this is a team that, like you said, has put together a nice tradition over there in Stillwater, and see if they can move it forward a little bit more.
Absolutely, and like we talked about last year with Union, that has a tough schedule. They may be 0-3 and be a state finalist contender. So look out for the Stillwater Pioneers.
Coming up next, the Sand Spring Sandites, coming in last year, making it to the quarterfinals with a 7-5 record. Coming back with 6 starters on offense, 6 starters on defense. Should be interesting.
Yeah, Tyler Pennington leads that offense. He's 6'3", 220-pound quarterback. He's the best quarterback nobody's heard of. And so look out for him. Look out for Matthew Shelton, the 6'2", 260-pound senior on the offensive line to anchor that. They have a lot of talent. They got a great coach in Coach Klink, and got an interesting schedule. I mean, they got a run in October that includes Booker T at Bixby and Choctaw in back-to-back weeks. And so how they handle that, if they could win 1 or 2 of those, they got a chance to be a semifinalist to finalist top team.
Talk about the October gauntlet right there. That's a big jointer knocker. That's back-to-back weeks, Booker T, Bixby, and Choctaw.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that will round out our 6A2. And with that being said, we're going to go ahead and get a chance to rank some of these teams and find out how we think they will fare at the end of the season. We'll start off with number 10. In our opinion, right now, it looks like Lawton has the 10 spot sold up.
We miss Ponca. Guys, we miss Ponca City. You want us to inject it and then come back? You guys add?
Oh, dang, it's not okay.
Yeah, it was behind Sand
My bad.
Springs.
Let me get it.
Good.
And last but not least, Ponca City, the Wildcats, coming off a 3-6 season last year. How do you think about what do you think about Ponca City and their expectations?
Well, they got an experienced head coach in Scott Harmon. He's got something in common with you. He played defense back at Oklahoma State back in the day. He was a rival of mine in high school.
All good men do.
Yeah. That puts me in a category other than you then. So they got a chance to make the playoffs. They need some things to improve. They need the running backs to make some plays. They got a pretty good offensive line. They got a chance to improve on that record from 3-6 in 2020. And so fringe playoff team, and if they get some things going their way, the biggest game of the year will be that Muskogee game, probably November 5th.
Yeah, it should be an interesting one. Well, that rounds out 6A2 here at Bravado Wireless. With that being said, we're going to go ahead and rank these teams and see how they'll fare at the end of the season. 1 through 10, starting off with 10. Let's go ahead and put my little vote in here. I think Lawton will be the number 10 ranked team in the state for 6A2 at the end of the day, or at the end of the season. What's your opinion on that?
I can agree with Lawton. I mean, the Wolverines got a chance to even improve on that position, but I think given what we know going into the season, that's the proper spot for them. And then you really follow them up at number 9 with Deer Creek.
Deer Creek, a team that was young last year, but a lot of experience coming back. It's going to be interesting to see how they turn that thing around over there. But I like where they're at. Slotted there at number 9.
Right. Then number 8, you've got Dell City with new head coach Robert Jones, who's Carl Albert's tradition. He's from that coaching tree of Gary Rose, and he's a guy that was instrumental in their playoff runs under Coach Dunn before he moved over to Carl Albert. And so I think you'll see that they have too much talent in that school district to not be a top 8 team here.
Coming up next will be a school that last couple of years has been a little lower in the standings, kind of being in that top 5, but just with the talent that they lost last year, I don't think they'll be, one of those top 5 teams going for that gold ball this year, and that's going to be Stillwater, the Pioneers.
Right, and I probably would differ on this a little bit. I think you might see at the end of the season, I think they're properly placed for preseason rankings. I would not be surprised to see them in the top 4 at the end of the season.
Moving on, Sand Springs is the team that comes up next. One of those teams that's just in the middle of the pack right now. Do have a talented quarterback, but it's going to be interesting to see if they're proven at the end of the season.
Absolutely. And Coach Klink's a great coach. He's been at Owasso with Coach Blankenship. He's been at East Central. He's a former Jinx Trojan. He knows winning, and he's instilling that winning tradition there at Sand Springs. I think you're going to see Sand Springs have a pretty good season here.
Coming up next, I think it's going to be Coach Hall's Midwest City Bombers. I think they always have talent. They got a talented quarterback, and with that being said, that can win you some ball games. And I think they will do some winning over there in Midwest City.
Absolutely, and then we get into our top 4, and we're going to go with Booker T. It's number 4. The inexperience on the offensive line is really the concern. The playmakers on the outside, quarterback play, and then losing Jaden Carroll to Jinx as running back. That Ethan Washington will be a more than satisfactory running back replacement for them. They've got one of the most electrifying players in the state, in Gentry Williams. Can they protect Latham Boone to get him the ball and get it to the outside? And then they've got playmakers on the defensive side. But you win ball games when you really think about it at the end of the season in the trenches, and that's something they have a chance to improve that. But that's kind of where they're at. But, boy, front-end talent, they've got a lot of it.
Yeah, coming up next, we got Putnam City North. This might be a surprise to some of our viewers that they're being ranked the number 3 team in 6A2. But this is a team that has a very talented quarterback, and you cannot underestimate that.
Yeah, and not only that, they a team that really came on towards the end of the season and really has a lot of momentum coming into this year. A team that really is a surprise to a lot of people, but I think you could flip-flop them or Booker T or Midwest City. I think those 3 are going to compete for that 3rd position in this class.
Yeah. And then the last 2 spots right here, I don't think it's going to be a surprise to anybody. Number 2 coming in is Choctaw. I mean, they are talented, and they go as Stillwater will let them. He is a big, strong quarterback, and he's got some talent there on the outside, especially Deshaun Brown. Defensively, he is a dominant presence. Already got a ton of offers over there. He's going to be able to come and get around those offensive linemen and get the quarterback, and he's going to put this defense in a lot of great field position.
Well, and if you watch the games last year, they had a lot of talent. I mean, they lost some kids, graduation, some Division I talent, but they had a lot of talent, underclassmen. The issue is they don't have Braylon Presley. and so our number 1 team is really 36-game winning streak. They won every state championship of Class 6A2 except 1 year when Booker T beat them in the finals, and that's the Bixby Spartans. They have a chance. They're going to have a tough start to the season. They have a chance. They're 13 games away from their all-time winning streak in the state of Oklahoma. 48 games held by Wagner Bulldogs. Between 2014 and 2017. If Bixby can get through the first 3 weeks of the season, they've got a chance. And they're going to have a chance to do that because of number 1. Now, the big challenge for Bixby is replacing Mason Williams,
yes.
a three-year starter quarterback. There's no doubt that they're going to have somebody in the wings waiting on him, but and it's not hard to get the ball to Braylon Presley. You can line him up, you can snap it direct to him, you can throw hitch routes to him, you can send him deep, and the guy had. I mean, if you haven't seen him, I'm just telling you, load your kids up, drive to a Bixby game and watch this kid. He had 368 yards in the first half against Booker T on a nationally televised game last season. I mean, that's a career for some kids.
It certainly is. And you just mentioned something. This Bixby team has been in every state championship game for 6A2 since that division was created. This is their last opportunity to get that gold ball in 6A2 because next year the report is they're moving up to 6A1. So might as well go out on top.
Absolutely. So that's our 6A2 rankings, and we'll take a quick break and we'll come back to you and we'll explore the 5A teams and give you our top 10 for them.
Hi, we're Bravado Wireless. You may have seen us at your local events and wondered just exactly what we do. We provide the highest quality cell phone service, specializing in outstanding coverage, both locally and nationwide. We're headquartered right here in Oklahoma, with multiple store locations in eastern Oklahoma. We provide the most affordable, unlimited talk, text, and data plans available. Make sure you stop in now and enjoy our other amazing summer deals before they end. Visit Bravado Wireless store locations for all other details or go to bravadowireless.com for more information. We are Bravado Wireless, and we believe in the power of connection.
Welcome back to the End Zone here at bravadowireless.com. This is a special edition as we're giving you our high school preview in the state of Oklahoma. And we've already went through 6A1 and 6A2. Now it's time to go to 5A. And what we did here is we whittled it down to what we believe is the top 16 teams. We'll give you a little brief description about each team, and then we'll give you our top 10. Can't leave out the other 10.
Yeah, absolutely.
So starting it off, we have Ardmore. And Ardmore, the Tigers, impressive team. 4-4 season last year. What do you think about them?
Well, Coach Newby returns 8 starters on defense, and the team that made it to the second round of the playoffs last year in a shortened, abbreviated season with COVID. They've got a lot of good players coming back, and they're a team that has a lot of expectations coming into the season. They're led offensively by Cal Swanson, 6'3", 180-pound junior quarterback.
Going to the next team, a team from District 5A3, Bishop Kelly. We'll see them in the first game of the season this year. Make sure you tune in to bravadowireless.com to check out that game. What do you think about this Bishop Kelly team?
Well, they don't have a lot of kids coming back. They only have 7 returning starters. They were senior-laden last year. Coach J.J. Tapania led them to a 10-2 record. They were number 1, number 2 late into the season after Carl Albert had lost to Bixby. But they got beat early on in the playoffs, kind of an upset. Huge game. The Holy War with McGinnis is September 10th. That'll be a really good game as a barometer to see where they're at and how this team will come along in the season.
Yeah. Going down the list, team in District 2 over here in 5A, Bishop McGinnis, the Irish, coming off a 11-3 record last year. Very impressive. Got a couple starters coming back. Should be pretty impressive.
Yeah, they got a big offensive line. They've got a lot of talent coming back. They're a tradition-laden team. They've got 12 returning starters, and look for them to be one of the teams that compete for the gold ball this year.
Speaking of the gold ball, the team that won that gold ball last year, Carl Albert, coming off an 11-1 season last year. The Titans looking to roll into another successful season this year.
A lot of talent always. It's one of the most tradition-rich programs in the state of Oklahoma. Something to note, Mike Dunn, new head coach, takes over for Mike Corley, who was head coach and longtime defensive coordinator there. Corley lost one ball game. I think he was 56-1 as a head coach. I hate that for him. I mean, having to lose actually.
That just one game. And, goodness gracious.
Won 5 state titles. Great guy, but he's replaced by Mike Dunn, Carl Albert guy as well. Expect them to be great as well. You've got a lot of talent in Kentrell Bazell, a running back, top 100 player. Plays both sides of the football. Xavier Thomas, a big-time wide receiver on the outside, and then really good talent on the offensive line.
Yeah. Next team on our list right there is the Claremore Zebras. The Zebras
Absolutely.
coming into the fold.
Yeah, Claremore is a team that's plays in a really tough district. They're in there with Collinsville and Tahlequah and Sapulpa. They're a team that really needs to got a lot of talent, but they're going to have to fight their way into playoff position through that tough district.
Yeah, a lot of experience on this Claremore team, though. A lot of seniors on both sides of the ball. It's going to be interesting to see how they fare this year. Next team on the list is Collinsville. The Cardinals, coming off a pretty impressive season last year, 11-1. Only lost 5 games in the last 3 years.
Yeah, Coach Jones is a great head coach. He's been there for a long time. They returned 11 starters. Big games for them include the rival game against Highway 20 War against Skytook on September 10th. Travel to Sapulpa October 1st for district matchup. And then really, I think the 2 big games on their schedule that determine where their playoff position will be is the October 8th game against Claremore, and then November 5th to end out the regular season at Tahlequah. That could be a trap in their plans to be the number 1 team on this side of the state.
Yeah, and Andrew Carney, 6'1", 200-pound senior, very, very impressive quarterback. Maybe the best quarterback in 5A, but we'll see. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people that have some words to say about that.
Absolutely.
Going down the list, the team that we mentioned a little earlier, Coweta. The Tigers are 10-2 last year. Everybody's saying they're poised to make a even bigger run this year. We'll have them on our schedule. We'll be able to watch them in action. What do you think about this Tigers team early on in the season?
Well, they returned probably as many starters as anybody in Class 5A. They got 9 on offense and 7 on defense. 16 returning starters for any team, unless the record was over, is impressive. But they were 10-2. Big games against McGinnis, week 0, which will be a really interesting and exciting game. They're going to play Wagner. Wagner loses a lot, but that's be a great matchup against a formidable 4A foe. And then they get into district play with 2 key games against McAllister and Bishop Kelly. I'll tell you, be exciting to season, be a Coweta fan.
Yeah, certainly will. Let's go ahead and dive into District 5A1 as we talk about El Reno here. This is the Indians. They come off a 8-3 record last year, returning 11 starters on offense. It's going to be very impressive to see what they can do with all the starters coming back.
Yeah, that'll be really exciting. They step up. They play Weatherford in a big rivalry game there out west of Oklahoma City. Their game against Ardmore on October 22nd will probably determine the district champion and who gets Carl Albert in the second round. So I don't know if you want to win or lose that one, but that's what they've got. They score a lot of points, and they need to score a lot of points because they have been a little weaker on the defensive side of the football. If they can improve that, they've got a chance to make a deep run.
Yeah, they certainly do. Moving on, the Blue Jays. Guthrie is a team that is always known to put some people in the seats and make noise on the field.
Tradition-rich program. They got a lot of young players that got experience last year in a 6-3 run. They're going to be very fast. They've always had a lot of talent on that side of the football. And Hammonds, the running back, 5'10", junior Isaiah Hammonds, look out for him to be the guy that kind of leads that offense.
Yeah, certainly will. Lawton MacArthur is the guys that we're looking at next. The Highlanders, coming off a 7-3 season last year. A lot of good players on their roster, and they're returning 15 starters. What do you think about them?
Lawton MacArthur is a team that's expected to compete for the 5A1 title, and a team that's always got a lot of talent, but they got a tough schedule this year. And I think that if Isaiah Gray, the running back, can carry them, and they've got some good other talent on the offensive side of the football, they got a chance to be good. 15 returning starters. They averaged 37 points per game last year, which they got to be better on defense, and they got a chance.
Yeah, they certainly do. Allowing 24 points a game last year on defense, it's got to be something that they limit and come down on. I mean, if you average 37, and then on defense you let up 24, it makes for a lot of wins, but still, gotta get that number down defensively. Moving on next, McAllister, the Buffaloes are coming into your town. 11-3 record last year. What do you think about the Buffaloes and their chances this year?
Well, McAllister is traditionally a big physical team. I think this year is no exception. They got a lot of talent. May have the best offensive line in the state, led by Avion Smith, a 6'5", 340-pound senior. He had 25 pancakes. That's not from IHOP. That's on the opposing players.
Yeah. He certainly did have a lot of pancakes. So that's one international house of pancakes right there they got in McAllister. But going on to the next team, we're going to look at Noble. Noble, the Bears, coming off a 4-6 record. What do you think about them?
Well, they were probably the fourth best team in that district, which is a really good district with El Reno and Ardmore, Lott, Mac. But they've got a lot of talent on the offense, and got a really good offensive line. The quarterback, Colin Fisher, is a guy that needs to improve. He had a pretty good sophomore season. He's got to be more dynamic for them to have a chance to be better than fourth in that district.
Yeah, I hear you on that one. Moving on, the Sapulpa Chieftains coming in with a 5-5 record last year, coming back with 6 starters on both sides of the ball. It's going to be interesting to see how they fare. What do you think?
Well, they lost a lot of explosiveness on that team from last year. Even though the record was 5-5, it's really not. They lost Tazon Taft, who's one of the most dynamic athletes in the state of Oklahoma. They're going to be smaller this year, but they're skill position guys. They can make some noise and they can upset some folks in a team that can improve upon that 4th spot in their district.
Yeah. And last but not least, in 5A, we're looking at Tahlequah, the Tigers, coming off a 6-5 record, coached by Coach Gilbert. And coming back again, just like Tahlequah, with 6 starters on offense and 6 on defense.
Absolutely. And the team we got to broadcast last year against Wagner, like their offense, like their scheme. They had some talented kids. The Malik McMurtry kid is a really good player. He was a running back that was actually out the week we were there, but electrifying player. The quarterback, Tyler Joyce, had a really good season last season. I'd look for him to improve upon that. They are talented and physical, and they've got really good skill position guys. They got a team that has a chance to go win their district and make a deep run into the playoffs.
Yes, they certainly do. And with that being said, we're going to make sure we get one more team on our list, and it looks like Duncan is going to be the team that we're looking for right here. They were a team that was 6-5 last year, coming back with some pretty good athletes, but extremely young on both sides of the ball.
Absolutely, and they're a team that if they can stay healthy, they've got a chance to make a deep playoff run right here. But they, again, tough district and a tough opportunity for them, but they are a team that could squeak into the playoffs and make some noise if things go their way.
Yeah. With that being said, that's going to be it for us as far as 5A, and now let's go ahead and give you our top 10 for 5A and see how things are going to end up here. Starting off things, you're going to be a little surprised, but I think it's going to be that Lawton MacArthur team right there.
Yeah, the Highlanders from the southwestern part of the state. They're a team that us in the Northeast don't have a lot of appreciation for, but got a lot of friends that from MacArthur as graduates, and they have a lot of pride in that school, and I think they've got a lot of talent. They've always had a lot of athletes, and they're a team that's going to make some noise from that side of the state.
Yeah. Coming up next, I think 8 and 9, you're going to look at Ardmore at 9, and then El Reno coming in at 8. Those are the teams that I kind of think got bunched up in there. You can kind of flip either one, but I think that's the way I like them.
Yeah, and we're giving a lot of credit to the East Side teams here, but El Reno's a team that I think if you look at the bottom half of this top 10, is a team that could, because they're on the west side of the state, is a team that can make a deeper run into the playoffs than then maybe what their preseason rankings show. Because really it comes down to matchups at that point in the season.
I believe you. Coming in at number 6 and 7, I think, as well. Bishop Kelly is a team at 6 that we're going to get a chance to see early on in the season, and then number 7, Tahlequah.
Yeah, and I think you can flip-flop these teams, but certainly we will have familiarity with Bishop Kelly after week 0 at Poto. But I really like Tahlequah. I like what I saw last year. They're going to be well coached. They've got talent. They've got some discipline, and they're a team that could really compete. Those two teams are bunched pretty closely in a tough district with Collinsville. We think Collinsville's the better of those, but really any of those three teams are really good.
Yeah. Coming in at number 5, which might be a little bit surprise to some people and some of our viewers, and some people might have some arguments that this team might deserve to be a little higher, but I think I'm going to go with Coweta at number 5.
Yeah, no argument there for me. I think they're a team that's got a lot of momentum coming in from last season, got a lot of skill back. They got a lot of depth in their team, 16 returning starters, I think is what we said, and so really excited to see them play. I think we got them about week 7, week 8, and so excited to see that matchup against McAllister.
Yep. Coming up at number 4, I got McGinnis, a team with a lot of tradition and is used to having a lot of success.
Yeah, they, when you think about Class 5A, that district, either McGinnis or Carl Albert, they've been in the same district for years and years, and really one of those two teams is always in the state finals, and sometimes they're both in there. And so they're a team that if things go well, they're a team that could compete for a state ball, no doubt.
Yeah, I believe you're on that one. Coming up at number 3, this is the team that's going to need a strong push from their offensive line, but if they can get that, I think this team at number 3, McAllister, will be at that spot.
Yeah, a big physical team, might be the most physical team in Class 5A. They are a team that is going to make it a tough advance from the semifinals to the finals. We're a team, I think, that has a chance to break into the gold ball game if things go right.
Yeah, and at the number 2 spot, we got the team we just mentioned earlier in that big power, strong, difficult district is Collinsville, but we got them at number 2 because we think they're the best in that district, and I think they're the number 2 team in 5A.
Well, they've got a great head coach. They've got a good quarterback. They averaged 49 points per game last season. A team that is very dynamic, and a team that made a deep playoff run last year, and a team that I think is poised for greatness this season.
And number 1, and the team that's probably been number 1 at the top of this list for a while now, and that's Carl Albert. The tradition never stops there. Even though they got a new head coach, I still think they'll be number 1 in 5A.
Absolutely. Too much talent on both sides of the football, too much tradition. I mean, when you go to Carl Albert and you walk in that gym, they got a lot of wins and a lot of state championships in every sport, but they got more state titles than almost anybody in football. And if you think of the past decade, they have been about as good a program as there is in the state of Oklahoma.
Speaking of the state of Oklahoma, we got one more team and division and play-ins and rankings to break down. That's 4A. 4A. When we come back here on BravadoWireless.com, we'll break down 4A for you. And this is the End Zone. I'm Deion Amati, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to the special edition of The End Zone here at BravadoWireless.com. I'm your man, Deion Amati. To my right here is my man, Curtis Branch, and we are here to give you 4A high school football in the state of Oklahoma. We'll break down the teams, then we'll give you the rankings, and we'll go ahead and start with Ada, the Cougars, starting things off here at 4A.
Traditional powerhouse, most state titles, I think, of any team in any school in the state of Oklahoma, and coached by Brad Osteen. They run a unique offense. It gives them a chance to give their opponents some fits. They were 5-4 last year, and we think they got a chance to make a decent run in the playoffs this year.
Yeah, certainly do. Moving down the list, we're going to go with Bethany, team in District 1 here in 4A. What is your opinion on Bethany right now?
Well, they returned 14 starters on both sides. Well, 14 starters total, 6 on offense, 8 on defense. They've got some early season games that are pretty critical to them at Newcastle, September 17th, October 29th versus Weatherford, and then not a good way to end your season, November 5th, Clinton against Clinton. But good running back, defensive back, and Malaska He's a guy that's got a chance to make them a difference maker.
Yeah, certainly does. Moving down the list, Blanchard, the Lions, coming off a 10-3 season last year, coached by Coach Craig. It's going to be interesting. Not a lot of starters coming back on this team.
No, not a lot of starters coming back, but they got a couple of receivers. They're young. They've got a chance to make the playoffs just because of the talent and what they did in the past years. But that they could be a 500 ball club if that young talent doesn't develop. But the tradition that they've had the past few years, I think, gives them a chance to be a playoff contender.
And it looks like right now everybody has a tough game on November 5th here in 4A
Yeah.
as they end their seasons. Like Tuttle coming into town is going to be a very important game for them.
Right.
Well, moving down the list, we got the Pirates of Bristow here in 4A. What do you think about the Pirates?
Well, 8-4. They've had 6 consecutive winning seasons, and got some really good players. And Alex Winter, a 6'4", 230-pound D1 prospect, plays both offensive line, tight end some. A couple of good running back linebackers in Cash Henson and Cord Dobrinsky. They're a team that has a chance to make a playoff run if they can develop some depth.
Yeah, they certainly can. And I was going to mention that conditioning is going to be very important early on this season. You know how that heat gets you in the spin cycle a little bit. You got to make sure you're well conditioned right now so you can be able to play in those early October and September games.
Absolutely.
Moving on, we got Cleveland, the Tigers. Looks like a team that 5-3 last year. What do you expect from them this year?
Well, that's my alma mater, so I expect a lot. Cy Stallard, great young coach. He returns not many starters. They lost a lot of talent, lost a lot of depth last year, but they've got a really good wide receiver, Noah Townley. He's a top 100 player in Vibe. He's a guy that's going to make some plays for him on the outside. Shane Hamilton, quarterback, senior as well. He threw for 1,600 yards and is a good runner. They gave him a chance with those two guys to make some plays and make a run in the playoffs.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty interesting. Coming down next on the list, it's going to be Clinton, the Red Tornadoes. How do you feel about the Clinton Red Tornadoes?
Well, I'll tell you, the last time I was in Clinton, it was at a loss. My Cleveland Tigers lost out there in the playoffs, and that was a long time ago. But they are a team that has always got talent. They're a tradition-rich program in Class 4A, and they're one of the teams that you're going to look for at the top of the list at the end of the season.
And it looks like they got some pretty good size over there on that offensive and defensive line, so it's going to be interesting to see how they fare throughout the season. Moving down, Cushing, the Tigers, coming off a 9-4 season last year, coached by Coach Morgan. What do you think?
Well, the quarterback gives them a chance to be really good. Blaze Berlowitz, he's a 6'3", 185-pound junior, and then he's got appears to be, I don't know if this is correct or not, but wide receiver is twin, Bray Berlowitz, and caught 680 of those passing yards last season. But they've got a lot of juniors, a really talented class, and I think they've got a chance to make a deep playoff run this year.
Yeah, well, it's going to be interesting to see if they can go ahead and do that. Moving down the list, Fort Gibson, the Tigers, coming off a 6-5 season last year. Big physical bunch over there in Fort Gibson. What's your opinion?
Well, they're a physical team that like to run the football to shorten games. They have the capability to throw it downfield. They're a team that if they can get through a couple of critical games, Salisaw is a game to look at on their schedule, Poto, and then obviously their rival at the end of the season in Hilldale. Those games will determine playoff positioning for the Tigers. like a lot of teams in 4A, though, Fort Gibson is going to have to be concerned about that depth, especially with a lot of players going both ways. It's going to be interesting to see how they, handle it early on in the season and then see if they get fatigued later on in the season. Absolutely. Moving on, Grove, the team that everybody is kind of curious about right now. 7-4 record last year. It's going to be interesting to see what they come out. A couple of starters coming back though. Yeah, they got 10 starters coming back, and they got critical ball games. They got Bristow, Cleveland, and Wagner in a really tough district. How they fare in those three games is going to determine playoff positioning, where they finish up in that district. Yeah, coming up next on our list, a team that's pretty interesting and fun to watch always when we come out there. Hilldale, the Hornets, coming off an 11-2 season last year. A lot of starters coming back. 7 on offense, 6 on defense. What do you think about this Hornets? Well, we had them last season. Really enjoyed watching them play. They're a dynamic offensive team. They returned their entire offensive line. I think that's an opportunity for them. Big Ryan Nail, who we saw him play basketball last year, 6'4", 210-pound senior, and then they've got a lot of talent on the outside as well offensively. They're a team that has a chance. I mean, 11-2 last year. They got a chance to go win a gold ball this year. I would not be surprised to see them in the semis or the finals this year.
I was able to see Nail at a couple of football camps this summer as well. He looked pretty good. Also playing a little bit of linebacker, so it's going to be interesting to see if they try him out on both sides of the ball as well.
Right.
But moving on from Hilldale and the Hornets, we got Newcastle, the Racers, coming off a 7-4 season last year. Coach Brickman coming back with 4 starters on offense and 5 starters on defense.
Yeah, and they probably have the toughest schedule in Class 4A. They're going to play 6 playoff teams this season on their 10-game schedule. They're brutal. They start off with Cleveland week 0, and then they've got Tuttle, Blanchard, and Clinton in a row in September. We talk about October being rough for some of these teams. September is going to be a rough start for Newcastle, but if they can weather the storm there, they've got a chance to make a deep run in the playoffs as well.
Yes, certainly do. Coming next on our list is the team that we'll be seeing in week 1, Poto, who's coming out of that 4A4 district.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll see them August 27th against Bishop Kelly. They've got a good running back in Todd Maddox, and I think he's the guy that you have to look out for. Defense has got to lead this team until the offense comes along. Defense is going to be the strongest suit of this team, and they're going to have enough talent to give them a chance to make a deep run. But that defense needs to hold them together early on, let that offense mature.
And the guy who's going to have to lead the way on that defense, and a guy that plays on both sides of the ball, Dean Odom, a tight end and linebacker for these Pirates. He's a physical player. He's going to have to lead the way for them.
Gotcha.
On the other side of this is Salisal, the Black Diamonds, coming off a 5-5 season last year. Going to be interesting. A lot of starters coming back, though, especially with a 5-5 record. That means they were young last year and still had some athletes to go out there and get some wins. What do you look for this team?
Well, I think the key for Salisal is they got to replace a quarterback. With 14 returning starters, they got some talent on the outside. They got to find a guy that can fit into that role and plug and play and can get the ball outside to the receivers because they got some talent on the outside. They've got a tough early season schedule. I mean, they at McAllister and then the host Tahlequah. I mean, 2 big-time 5A programs, and then they got Poto and Hilldale, who we think are going to be really top of the class here. So they've got a rough stretch. They could go 5-5, 6-4, and have a really good season.
Coming up next, the cream of the crop here at District 4A2 is the Tuttle Tigers, team that's won 63 games in 6 years. Yeah,
Coach Ballard returns 12 starters, 6 on offense, 6 on defense. They've got a lot of talented players. Cannon West is a running back. Tyler Woodson's another running back. Those two combined for well over 2,000 yards last season, and they have the most depth of probably any team in Class 4A, which when you get through playoff time, you get nicked up, you get players that are injured and they're having to go both ways. That's a big thing. They're going to be a tough team defensively, maybe the most talented team on defense. We saw a great defensive team win 4A last year in Wagner, one of the best defenses I've seen in years in Class 4A, and Tuttle's got the makings of a similar defense this year.
Speaking of Wagner, they're going to be the next ones on our list right here. The Bulldogs, coming off a 14-0 season last year. Very impressive. I'm telling you right now, Coach Condit, he has things figured out over there.
He does, and he's going to have to be as good a coach as he's ever been because they lost 20 of 22 starters from last season. They've got a tough, brutal schedule. They're going to open at Coweta, a team that we've highlighted in Class 5A, and then they go week 2 to Tahlequah, another team we highlighted in Class 5A. We project them at the top of their district because of the talent and everybody they got coming back. Gabe Rodriguez is next in line at quarterback. They've got a couple of outside talented receivers coming in for them, but they are the most inexperienced team in Class 4A. They are as strong. They've got 9 total losses in 8 years, but they're going to have these young guys come on. And you believe, and I've seen it, I know you've seen this, when you're in tradition-rich programs, you see those young kids, it's part of their
they know what to do when they get to that stage.
And so they could be a contender by the end of the season as those kids mature, because you know what they won against last year? 20 starters that won 14 straight games.
Yeah, that's a lot of tradition to uphold, isn't it?
Well, it's not only that, but I mean, iron sharpens iron, and they got beat up in practice every day by arguably one of the best Wagner teams of all time. So that's going to make them better. And they played against better competition than anybody in Class 4A's played against.
Well, they certainly know what it takes to win.
Absolutely.
Speaking of winning, moving on, a team that went 8-1 last year, the Weatherford Eagles, coming off a pretty impressive season. 5 starters coming back on offense, 5 starters coming back on defense. Should be impressive.
Yeah, they're going to have to replace a quarterback. I think that's going to be the big key for them, and to see how they run. And again, they've got a pretty tough schedule as well. They're at El Reno. They host Clinton. They've got at Bethany, and then they end the season at Cache. But they're a team that I think has a chance to be a second in their district behind Clinton.
Well, with that being said, now that we've gone through the teams in 4A, now let's go ahead and rank them. And let's go through this, and let's start with 10. Who do you think is at number 10 for 4A?
Well, we'll go with the Black Diamonds of Salisaw. I mean, they were 5-5 last season. They've got a lot of optimism. They look good in camps over the summer, and they've got some talent on the outside. And they got a lot of belief that they've got a chance to compete. They've got a rigorous schedule. I mean, a really tough start to the season. We'll see how they fare through that. Some teams lose a little bit of momentum. A lot of teams gain some toughness and really a self-belief that goes through a schedule like they have to start the season. But I think they're a team that is very worthy of a top 10 ranking.
Number 9, I have Ada down. What do you think about that?
I like Ada at number 9. I think that they're a team that's has a chance to compete for their district. They're in a very tough district with Cushing and Tuttle. They could be the 3rd best team in that district and be one of the top 5 teams in the state. Because you've got 2 really talented teams at the top of that district. But I think they're a team that will compete for that spot and for the 3rd position in that district.
Coming in at number 8 is Bristow, along with number 7, Weatherford. What do you think about those 2?
Well, Bristow, for different reasons, they have more talent, or they have more returning starters coming back than Wagner. They've got a good head coach. They've got a chance that if things fall in their place, they could bump up. They could win that district. Now, it's not a given, and we're going to pick Wagner to win that district, but Bristow's a team that could very well come along there. And then Weatherford is a team that made a deep run last year. They had a lot of talent with the Downs kid that moved on. They got to replace a quarterback, and how that quarterback play comes along will dictate whether they're better than 7th in the state or whether they're not.
Speaking of Wagner, they're coming in at number 6. A lot of people might be surprised to see them at 6 because they've probably been on top of this district for a long time now, but they're down there. What do you think about them?
Well, I think you've got a really good class in 4A this year again, and you've got some really the top 5 teams above Wagner all have more returning talent and more returning starters. When you lose 20 starters, I don't care how good your program is, you expect to take a step back, especially as much talent as they lost. But I think that's a good spot for them, and I think if those kids gel and mature like we think they're capable of, they can make a deep run into the playoffs and advance beyond 6th.
Number 5, Poto, the Pirates. We'll see them week 0. They'll come in at number 5 in the middle of the pack. What do you think about their ranking?
Well, I like Poto a lot. I like where they're positioned. They have a tough district. They've got Hilldale, Salisaw, and Fort Gibson. But where those games position at the end of the season and as they position for district play, I think they've got a chance to make a deep run. And, we saw that in 2019. They made a deep run into the playoffs and won it. And they weren't expected to do that. So I think they have the potential to go win a gold ball.
The Hilldale Hornets come in at number 4, right behind Cushing at number 3. What do you think about those 2 teams?
I think that I think you can flip-flop. I think they're interchangeable in that. I think really they are the 3rd and the 4th best teams in this class as you look at it to start the season. Seasons don't always work out to where what you start with is what you end with, because there's a lot of things factor into that. The maturity of kids, the injuries, how things fall out in the playoff rankings, because you can finish second in your class and you're going on the road second round, and it's usually not to a tough, it's usually not to an easy opponent. So how playoff positioning falls in is really, I think, a key factor to how this class shakes out. But both those teams are worthy of a top 4 ranking and could easily make it to the state title game.
All right. Number 2, Clinton is the number 2 team. What do you think about them as being number 2, and can they hold that up throughout the season?
Oh, absolutely. I think they're there every year. They're a team that you always think about when you think of 4A football. They're a team that has a chance to easily get to the state championship game and to win it. And you probably give Tuttle a nod on that, but just because of the amount of talent they have coming back and what they have coming back defensively. But really, Clinton should win District 4A1 in a tough district with Weatherford, Bethany, and Newcastle. And then you've got Tuttle coming out of another tough district, and they're going to be, potentially facing the semifinal team in district play.
Yeah, with Tuttle rounding out that ranking with being the number 1 team, ends 4A for us, and that goes on to say, hey, you can't say we didn't tell you beforehand that these rankings aren't set in stone. Some teams could come up and surprise us. Some could just stay right where they are.
Yeah, and I would say this. I mean, about Class 4A, it's the deepest class. It's got the most talent, and it's the most open-ended. And the thing is, you've really got some clear-cut favorites in 6A1, 6A2, and 5A. I mean, I would think Tuttle is the favorite, but any of those teams in the top 5 or 6 can make a run and could get there. So it'd be a really interesting class, and from a guy that's a Cleveland guy, Class 4A guy, you love to see the competition at that class.
Yeah, you certainly do. With that being said, that's going to end 4A for us. When we come back from our last commercial break, we'll give you the top 10 teams in 3A, and then we'll send you off. And that will be our pregame show.
Whether your roads are dirt, paved, or if you're blazing new trails, the roads we travel lead to all of our most cherished places and people. Bravado Wireless strives to keep you connected wherever the roads may take you. We are the leader in wireless mobility and connection in Oklahoma and across the nation. We carry some of the market's top cell phone brands, fast, reliable home internet, and even greater customer service. Locally owned and operated right here in eastern Oklahoma. So whatever roads you travel, Bravado Wireless has them covered. From beginning to end. We are Bravado Wireless, and we believe in the power of connection.
Welcome back for the last time to the End Zone here on our high school preview show. Our spectacular. I mean, it's been fun talking high school football here with you, Curtis.
Hey, we could do it all day. It's better than the fishing and the basketball we tried to do last week.
It certainly is. But one more classification to talk about, that's 3A. We got the top 10 teams, in our opinion, for 3A up, and we'll talk about a few of them. Let's go ahead and start with Kingston, in my opinion. This is a team that a lot of people are going to be surprised to see them at 10. They finished 9-1 last year, but still, that was last year, and they got a lot of things to cover up and make up for this year, a lot of missing pieces. It's going to be interesting to see how they fare. What are some of these teams that you see across the board that you're interested in?
Well, we saw Verdigris last year a couple of times being a local team. I think they're a team that's got a chance to be a little better than number 8, but I think that they're a spread offense. They're a team that's got some talent. They got a winning tradition. They're going to be second probably in their district behind Hall and Hall. They're a team, though, that can make a playoff run. I mean, they were pretty good last year and got roughed up in that district.
Holland Hall was really good last year, though, but they have a lot of pieces missing from last year's team that went on and graduated. Owen Ostrowski, Mr. Football in Oklahoma, and a lot of people's eyes. He goes on to Tulsa. Heritage Holland Hall having to replace him, and a phenomenal athlete in Goldsby. Yeah,
so Holland Hall, I think, is still going to probably win their district. I think they have a chance. with some of those younger kids to mature. Like a lot of what we talked about with Wagner, you've got winning tradition. You got some guys that saw how it was done, and I think that's a lot to build on. So I think they're the team that could easily be in the top 5. Followed closely by following Perkins, who's got one of the top most returning starters. They got a lot of depth coming back from a team with a lot of experience, and a team that has a chance to be really, really good and finish second in their district behind Heritage Hall.
Well, let's talk about the Shakota team, because, I mean, number 3 right now on our rankings, but this is a team that has a phenomenal running back in Fisher.
Yeah, Dontier Fisher, we saw twice last year. We're going to have him this year in the game of the week. Twice, I believe, and he's a guy that's getting offers all over the place. He's an explosive player in the Class 3A as there is. He's a guy that could lead them into the semifinals or even into the finals this year.
Most certainly. And to top off this classification of 3A, it's going to be these 2 teams that nobody's pretty surprised about that. Number 1, Heritage Hall. Number 2, Lincoln Christian.
Yeah, and we saw Lincoln Christian twice last year. Max Brown is the returning quarterback. He got them to the state finals in an appearance against Holland Hall. And then, Heritage Hall got beat in the semifinals last year. Have a lot of talent coming back, a lot of elite players coming in. And so we'll probably see those 2 teams compete for the gold ball in this thing. But it wouldn't be surprising to see Fisher load up the whole town of Shakota on his back and lead them to the state championship game as well.
Yeah, would not be surprised at all. But with that being said, that's going to do it for us for Class 3A and the preseason rankings. And that's going to do it for us here on BravadoWireless.com in the end zone, as we have a special edition for our preseason football. And that means, because this show is over, football season is right around the corner.
Absolutely. Get out in the next week or 2 and watch your favorite local teams as they prepare for the season with some early season scrimmages, and then get out there for week 0 and tune us in and watch some great high school football this season on BravadoWireless.com.
Yes, sir. And don't forget, guys, just like my man Mr. Branch just said, we will be back August 27th at Poto as they go ahead and take on some pretty good football teams. And dang it, who did Poto take on?
Bishop Kelly.
Bishop Kelly. I forgot. Poto taking on Bishop Kelly in week 0 action. We'll be right back to give you some football here at BravadoWireless.com.